That's the gift. That's the treasure. It's like, the cave Joseph Campbell said, the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure that we seek.
Mm.
So we go into the cave, we go into the dark, we go into the mystery with support, not always by ourselves, but again, with that support, with that guide, that mentor, that person holding space for us. And the treasure is us, and so I there's a grand opportunity right now to be with ourselves in ways that we've never been, and to be with others in ways we've never been, so that everybody can find themselves.
Modern parents are under immense pressure and overwhelming stress to be a perfect parent and raise a generation of highly intelligent children. Amidst worrying about raising happy children, most of us never stop to think, how do I create a life of ease and peace? What right do we have to teach our children how to live life if we don't know that ourselves? I'm Saloni Singh, a life, self-mastery and family coach. My mission is to help parents raise themselves so we raise a generation of conscious and aware children. In my podcast, you will find simple yet effective tools for life, not just from me, but my inspiring guests as well. So let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Raising Parents 2.0, a space where we explore ways to raise ourselves to be more aware, conscious, and mindful human beings as parents and in all our relationships and roles we play. And since the beginning of this podcast, I have talked about the importance of holding safe, nurturing space for our loved ones and for people, any relationships we have in life. And as we have talked about earlier as well, holding space means really being present for someone emotionally, mentally, physically, in all ways. Supporting someone to be there for them and to let them feel whatever they're feeling they're going through. And today it's my delight and joy to have a guest who is a holding space trainer. I even didn't know something like that exists. She's a psychotherapist and coach, Rachael Starr Bruck. Rachel has been holding space for over 15 years as a facilitator, therapist, and deep transformational coach. Having personally traversed the twists and turns of the transformational terrain, she holds and facilitates sacred, spacious spaces that allow and honor many processes of healing. She believes that co healing is self healing and continually commits herself to raising her own consciousness in service of a more connecting, loving world. So let's welcome Rachel.
So much for having me.
Hi, Rachel. So happy to have you here today. And I'm really excited to really talk about this topic, which is really close to my heart, holding space. And I would like to actually give a shout out to Leon Vanderpool, who connected us as well. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Leon. Absolutely. It's such a joy to be here and to continue kind of exploring this topic with you. I know Leon kind of started part one, and so it's exciting to kind of dive in more.
Yes, it looked like a sequel to that. Absolutely. So, Rachel, I would love to start, like, to ask first of all, how has been your journey and how you have come to become a holding space? So, in terms of especially being a holding space trainer, I mean, how has been your own spiritual journey and how you've reached here? That's what I want to know first.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that question. I think looking back, I can see how holding space has always been this thread that's kind of woven itself through all of my interests, my hobbies, my career choices, my volunteer choices. From a very young age, I think from when I was in college, I was super passionate and interested in, being in spaces and creating spaces where others could be really deeply authentic and really deeply held and connected to. Whether that was through theater or, teaching or dance or, other things. Um, and then I feel like life kind of said to me, well, if you really are here to hold space, if this is really your soul's purpose, then we're really going to give you the opportunity to learn to do that for yourself. And so, what I mean by that is, I've been chronically ill, or I was chronically ill, from the time I was 16 to about 36. So, there were 20 years where off and on I was struggling to be healthy, struggling to thrive, struggling to be in the world as I saw others be in the world, because I was dealing with chronic illness. And it was so excruciating. That path was so painful and so challenging. And, being in my 20s and 30s and not having the life experience that others had, or feeling like I couldn't, have that experience, was very, very challenging. And I will be honest that I did not do a good job at holding space for myself. I had no idea. It's like I was showing up in the world and I kind of had a sense of how to do that for others, and I was learning. But when it came to myself, it was, I really denied myself love, and I really denied myself acceptance. And I struggled to fix and change myself for so many years in my circumstance. And then one day, nearly 20 years after I was diagnosed, I went to hear one of my favorite spiritual teachers talk. And it was a day-long event. And towards the end of the day, I stood in line, and it was a book signing line. And I wanted to ask him this question that was burning inside of me. And I got to the table and I said to him, "What message do you have for my body that won't heal itself?" And he just looked at me with eyes just full of love. And he said, "Stop trying to heal yourself."
Wow. Wow.
And it was like, there was this like pivotal paradigm shift inside of me where I could fully surrender. Like I could fully meet myself without having to change a thing. And that's where my healing journey really took off, and, has put me where I am today, really, in my own health, in my own well-being, in my own career success, and in all of that. So it was quite the journey. It was quite the journey, and I'm very grateful for it. Yeah.
Wow, that must be profound. That must be really profound experience. And what an experience, really. I have no words what you just described, and I had no idea you have gone through much. So, what was the main essence or the learning that came from that experience? I really want to know that. What was it that shifted maybe in you actually?
Yeah. Well, I think, any form of trying to fix ourselves or change ourselves or change what's happening or feel differently, is a sense of separation from ourselves. This idea of like, let's stop trying to heal ourselves. Let's stop trying to be whole. Let's stop trying, it's kind of radical, because we are whole already. We are healed already. We are all those things, but we forget. We have this misperception in the mind that parts of us are okay and not okay. Parts of us are good and bad and healthy and unhealthy and right and wrong. And we have all these judgments, conscious or unconscious, that really disallow us from receiving love as we are, where we are. And so for me, it was a pretty radical experience to meet myself instead of trying to change myself, and to kind of bring that love back where I had denied it. Innocently. I didn't mean to deny myself love, but I did. It was like, as long as I was sick, as long as these things were happening, as long as I felt this way, that beingness in me did not deserve love or reverence, is basically what I was doing. And so for me, holding space is about letting go of judgment of who we are and where we are, and bringing a sense of respect and reverence to wherever we are in this present moment.
That sounds beautiful. And I'm just wondering that if somebody, like I get that. I have been in this journey for long and really struggled with really knowing and trusting my wholeness, and come to, I would say, I might like to love to say that I've come to good, way ahead now. though still we always keep falling back. But for someone who might be struggling with, let's say, some physical illness or some emotional trauma, and they just can't see the wholeness at all, and they're like, no, but my practical experience is totally different. I mean, how would you say that they can start to see that? Even because people sometimes say that, yeah, it sounds like a concept, or maybe for moments it might feel like it's, yeah, what you're saying, it making sense. But when it comes to their own pain, and in those moments of pain, that doesn't feel real for them, right?
Of course, of course. And I will say, as I mentioned in my journey, this took me 20 years. And it's not that it's over. you know, there's always more to practice. There's always more to hold space for. And the deeper we go in our own journey, the more we really need healing containers, the more that we really deserve someone to hold space for us. So I want to be really real that sometimes when we're going through something that is so painful and excruciating and challenging and uncomfortable, the best thing we can do for ourselves is have space held for us, and let ourselves receive the gift of that. So I still have space held for me. It's still a part of my self-care and my healing journey and my transformation. So I just want to put it out there that we all deserve that, especially in the complexity of our world and what's going on. However, in our course, in our Holding Space for Healing course through the Center for Transformational Coaching, we teach 6 different practices. So these aren't like fix-it tools. It's not like, hey, do this and feel better. These are not, band-aids or quick ways out of wherever we're feeling, but they're practices that really help us come closer to ourselves. Really help us, like Leon talked about, slow down and become present in a way where we can begin to expand our capacity to hold whatever we're holding. And to partner with spirit in that, to partner with the mystery in that. So whatever you believe about, whatever you believe about something that's bigger than ourselves, whether it's the universe or God or spirit or nature, or again, just the mystery, it's like we get to partner with that to help us begin to hold the really uncomfortable experiences inside of us. It's not just about us doing it alone. Holding space is relational, whether that's between you and I, if we're working, if I'm holding space for you, whether it's about a community coming together to hold space for one another, or whether it's about me working with spirit and having spirit to help me hold space. So it is relational. Holding space is very relational.
I'm glad you made that point that sometimes we just need somebody else there who can hold really space for us. And that brings to me to the question that what is holding space for somebody who might not actually be very, well versed with the term and might be wondering that, okay, maybe I've heard of this word, but I know somebody is going through pain in some loved one, my child or partner, anybody, and I have no idea what does that mean. Or then the next question would come, of course, how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a big question, and I think it's constantly evolving. And I think that there's a lot of people out there talking about holding space, and none of it is right and wrong. I think I'm grateful to say that we're all collectively kind of coming to this realization at the same time that holding space is important. It's like I want to jump up and down. I'm so happy, that this is coming into the collective, more and more. And I would just say, holding space is being with another, without judgment, without an agenda. Okay, this needs to happen, that needs to happen, without fixing or rescuing or saving someone from what they are in. It's just like being present with them. I like this image of like walking alongside someone as they're walking down the path of life. And you're just walking together. You're not trying to get off the path. You're not trying to clear anything. You're not trying to jump in a car. It's like you're just walking and listening and being there for that person. So that, and really the desired outcome of that, why would we do that? What's really the highest intention? And, when we hold space for someone, we're allowing them to be where they are. And when they're allowed to be where they are and feel what they feel, what begins to happen is they begin to understand, oh, I can hold this. And beyond the stress, the chaos, the disruption, the pain, the fear is an innate sense of strength and capability to hold this and to get through this, right? They begin to tap into that. When we come in and fix it or give advice or try to save, it's a disempowering place to come from. It's like, you can't do this by yourself, so I'm going to help you and show you. Again, mostly that comes from love. And most of us learn that that's what love means. I'm going to help you. I'm going to make this better for you. I'm going to carry this for you. It's so sweet and it's so innocent, right? But it is disempowering ultimately, because that person, no matter what they're going through, is whole, is brilliant, is intelligent, is capable. And so our presence and how we relate to them in that moment shows them that. And we can do that for our loved ones, for our coworkers, for our children, for our community members, and, for ourselves.
Yes, that's beautiful. The way you describe it is just beautiful. And I think these are the main areas which comes in between when we're trying to really hold space, especially for someone we really love, someone who's really close to us, that need to fix their pain. And that comes so quickly, especially I see in close like family members like your partner or a sibling or a child, because what I have noticed that the uncomfortableness, that how uncomfortable we are with other people's pain, so that is something which I always feel that stops somewhere us to really just hold space and see them in that wholeness you're talking about. So what do you think, what are the other things that actually stop us from really gently holding that space?
Hmm. I think you named it so perfectly, Saloni. I think it's from a very young age. Most of us are not taught to hold our own pain and to hold our own discomfort and how to be with it. I mean, think about it. A child falls down on the playground and it's like, you're okay, it's okay, or if they're upset, we get messages, when we're upset or when we're scared, again, well-intended parents sometimes, but we hear things like, you know, be happy, get over it. Like, don't be scared, don't be sad. It's just these little tiny messages that over time, we don't really learn how to be with our own pain. And so when we grow up and we're in the face of another's pain, especially like you said, oh my God, our children's pain. That's hard. That is so challenging, not to want to change for them somehow or to fix for them somehow, because again, we're not used to being with our pain and bringing love to that place.
Right.
So something we teach in the course is like, how do we hold more from the heart and less from the head? So what I mean by that is, let's say I'm in the face of someone else's pain. My head's going to tell me so much. My head's going to say, ooh, this is uncomfortable. Ooh, I don't like this. Ooh, I don't want them to suffer. What do I do? Yeah, what do I do, right? What do I do? What do I do? How do I help? That's what the mind's going to do. But the heart is unconditional, right? The heart of love is unconditional. And the heart can actually say, this is okay. And I am going to be here with you. And I'm going to bring my compassion. I'm going to bring my love. I'm going to bring my patience and my trust, really. I think it takes a lot of trust. But again, the more we kind of learn these practices to come more into our heart center, that ability to be there just naturally begins to increase. So I think it's also really important to begin to cultivate awareness. Okay, what's coming from my head and what's coming from my heart?
Yeah.
What would love say in this place? What would love do in this place? It's a question I love to ask my students, when facing discomfort or challenge or pain.
That's a beautiful question. And I certainly see that being a mom myself. I mean, it's just so hard. Like if my daughter is going through something and she's sharing some heartbreak or something, it's like I just want to quickly fix and make her feel better. And of course, it's immediately come, okay, how can I cheer her up? How can I do something? Can I do something? Buy something just to, just bring that smile. So yeah, and we just have no idea how to hold pain.
Yeah, we don't. And I think we get to forgive ourselves for that. Like really like give ourselves grace in that. And if you are someone that wants to learn that, it is totally learnable. It is totally possible. And we all have the innate ability to do this work, to be relational in this way, if we want to.
Absolutely. I loved what you said, Rachel, about coming from the heart more than mind, because I think it's more about we instantly go in a doing mode. What can I do for the other person? I would like to know if there's anything else you can suggest which somebody who's listening and they're like, wow, this is beautiful. Like, oh, how can I really be more from the space of my heart center and not that much from my mind? Is there anything else? I love the question you shared. What else is any practice which people can do? Because we are always in the mind. We know that. It's a prison. Like we are always stuck there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say, a lot of holding space is about being, not about doing. So again, if and when someone feels like they're in the doing mode, I got to do something. Right? This isn't okay, and I got to do something, right? Again, I have so much compassion for that because we all fall into that. We all have different thresholds for pain. But when someone really kind of comes into that place, the first thing I think to do is to take a breath, is to just slow down. And when we slow down and we start to pay attention to our breathing, Saloni, we become more present and we become more in our body. And when we're more present and when we're more in our body and when we're not trying to get out of what's happening, right? We're not trying to get to a future place or we're not reacting from a past place. As a parent, you could be like, oh my God, this already, I watched this happen with my kid 2 years ago and this was awful. And I know what happens if we stay here. And, there's all this past trauma or, whatever. And then there's the like, well, if we can just get here, we'll be safe. So I have to do something so we can get to anywhere else but here. I call it the ejector button. But if we can let go of that past and future reactivity, and we can breathe and we can become present, then we have a choice in being.
Right.
So then we can say to ourselves, who do I choose to be in this moment? And just that takes a lot of practice, a lot of effort at first. It's like building a new muscle, right? But it's like if you can say to yourself, who do I choose to be with this person right now? And then just see, I call it first thought, best thought. What arises? Oh, I choose to be loving. Okay. And now I just get to practice being loving. My words come from love. Or I'm going to practice being patient. What would I say to this person if I was being patient? What would I do? Maybe I wouldn't say anything. Maybe I would just sit back and listen. A lot of holding space is about listening because it's not about us as the space holder. A lot of times in normal conversation, it's like, I want to tell you what I think. I want to tell you about how this relates to me. I want to tell you about the same thing that happened to me. I want to tell you about when I went through that painful situation, or I lost my mother, or I, had the situation with my boss. It's like we're always wanting to add that kind of value. But when we're holding space, it's a different kind of value. And that value doesn't include us having to share anything about ourselves. So when in doubt, listen more, be more, and do less.
Right. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Be more and do less. Yeah.
Be more and do less. Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, that also brings to me the same thing which we were discussing in the beginning, that because we don't know how to hold space for ourselves, that is one of the biggest reason that we are not able to a lot of times to do it for other people as well. So, what could be a way to start with ourselves? Because I think that always come in the way. For example, especially with parents, most of the time they lose their temper because they themselves are so stressed out, they're so anxious, or going through something they haven't actually dealt with, or they are not ready to come to terms with. So all of this really just come out, especially in parenting, relationship. So how do you really hold space for that? Because I think that's where we start from. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You and I were talking about the other day, it is so true that we have to fill our own cup first. We have to be willing to start holding space for ourselves first before we can really effectively do it for other people. And if we want to learn to hold space, if we want to cultivate our presence in these ways, then we have to be willing, and this takes a lot of courage, and I really honor the courage this takes, to begin to become more familiar with our inner world and our emotional experience. There's no other way. We can't avoid it through the busyness of life. And it's really easy to avoid it through the busyness of life. And it's effortless. It's truly effortless, Saloni, to really choose to do anything else
Yeah.
than to hold space for ourselves. You know what I mean? It's like,
Binge watch.
yeah, or the dishes, or taking out the garbage, or the homework, or the meal, or the grocery shop. I mean, there's so much to do. There's so much to do, and it really does get in the way of us holding space. But what I will say is that I think sometimes people have this idea, well, I have to sit down and meditate for an hour, or I have to take a whole day off, or I have to go for a walk for 3 hours on the mountaintop. Those things are great. Don't get me wrong. But when we think that or I have to go on retreat, right? Oh, I have to go hold space for myself for these 5 days and I'll come back into my life. When we think about it this way, we're mostly not going to do it. And so really it's about even taking just a few moments to check in with what's going on inside and to acknowledge it, to name it. So even while, let's just imagine someone's washing dishes, right? And their mind's thinking about work or whatever. In that moment, if they could just, again, it all starts with slowing down. If they could just slow down and become present and feel into their body and feel into their emotions, and let's say their stress is present, and they could say to themselves, I accept this is how I'm feeling. That's holding space for yourself. It's that simple as the first step, right? Or they're feeling afraid for something that's happening in their family. I accept this is how I'm feeling. And you can feel the energy shift in that, right? You can feel the acceptance come in. Like it's like a softening. I'm going to name it, I'm going to see it, and I'm just going to say, okay, this is what's here.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Just really slowing down, and really accessing what is happening in my internal world. And I think pausing, because one of the reason we are just so much into rush, just literally running through life, really.
Running through life, absolutely. One of the practices in the course too, the Holding Space for Healing course, is letting there be silence and finding times for silence, because again, if we don't kind of minimize the chaos and the noise of the world, we might not even be able to get to that place where we know what we're feeling. So I always advocate, don't turn on the podcast, don't turn on the music, just any little times throughout your day where you can create silence for yourself. That begins to allow the deeper feelings and the deeper experience that, again, people might say, well, I don't even know what I'm feeling, like I'm just too preoccupied. But if we slow down and we create times for silence, then it's going to bubble up. It's going to start, we're going to make that spaciousness inside for what wants to emerge to start to come up, what wants to be felt, what wants to be held. We don't have to go digging for it. You know, when people, my students will say, well, do I have to go digging for my pain? I'm like, of course not. No one needs to go digging for pain. But when we create a healing space inside of our own self, right? When we create a healing container for our own self, it's just going to naturally arise. What we've been holding perhaps for a very long time and avoiding or not attending to will just begin to bubble up to the surface.
Yeah, it's like you really becoming present to it because it was there. We're just trying to kind of push it down.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. So I would love to know. I loved what you just said, Rachel, about really bringing more silence in your day. I think you're already living in such a noisy world, and inside also there's a lot of noise. Any more practices? Because I know whenever I, talk to my clients or any parent, really just slow down. That's the first step, and they're like, oh my God, no, I can't do that. And I can't sit still for 5 minutes even. And as if life would stop for them. So a lot of people have told me actually this experience that even the word slowing down just sometimes just put them in a panic, as if they just
Yeah.
do it because sometimes they have such strong conditioning to be productive, to be efficient, and sometimes seems contradictory, even though I love to tell them that when you slow down actually you're really accelerating in your life. That's where actually things are just gonna flow. But again, until unless somebody experiences that, I think they sometimes just don't understand. So
Yes.
anything would you suggest, like any practices which can help people to really bring this value and understand what does it mean when you really need to slow down?
Yeah. Yeah. I think slowing down is really hard for people. Leon also talked about this in your episode about his client, that just couldn't even sit outside with the birds for 5 minutes, but that over time, when he committed to practicing, that it extended to 20, 30 minutes, it took months and months and months, but he could. Um, so again, grace for ourselves, grace for where we are. Because again, if we approach ourselves with this, I have to do this, I have to change this, again, that's also trying to fix ourselves. So when it comes to holding space for ourselves, I really ask my students to find a practice that works for them in terms of how are you going to meet yourself for just 5, 10, 15 minutes today, where the distractions aren't there, where the intention is to connect with your inner world. There was a time in my healing journey where I actually had to give up meditation because even meditation for me became a way to escape myself. So again, there's these very subtle ways that we avoid. And yes, going fast to me is twofold. It's one, that's the conditioning. We live in a productivity progress world where that has the highest value. And we really believe we're machines. Like we forget that we're actually organic beings. We've actually forgot we're organic beings that are connected to nature and are influenced by the seasons and perhaps the moon and other things, and our energy levels wax and wane, and there needs to be periods of rest and periods of productivity. If we think about the seasons, winter time, it's like everything goes into hibernation, and summer, it's like bam, flowers are blooming and all these things, and we think we're not that. We think we're so disconnected. And we think we have to go, go, go all the time. But back to the practice. So everybody has to find their own way with this. But maybe it's literally journaling for 9 minutes a day, where they're just going to write what's in their mind, what's going on in their bodies. And maybe it's just, I'm so stressed out, I'm so stressed out, I'm so stressed out, da, da, da. Fine. Just meet yourself where you are and write it out. Maybe it's, I learned a different kind of meditation where I would put my hands on my heart and I would invite my heart to say and feel and express anything it wanted. So it wasn't about not thinking. It wasn't about connecting to source. It wasn't about getting rid of thought. It was like, I'm just going to sit here and listen and feel whatever wants to be listened and felt.
Wow. Beautiful.
Maybe Maybe it's, when you walk to pick up your kids at school, I'm going to do a mindfulness walk where I look around the world and I say, okay, tree, car, sidewalk, and I slow myself down and I practice presence on my walk. It could be anything. And there's many more things to do. But my first suggestion to people is, okay, maybe you can't slow down right now, but spend a little time each day in self-reflection and meeting yourself, whatever that looks like.
That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Just meeting where you are. Just really meeting where you are.
Meeting where you are. And it's harder. And it's funny, Saloni, because it's so simple. Oh, I'm just going to meet myself. Cool. It's like very challenging to do that. So it takes practice. And I want to remind people that it takes practice. And in our course, it's really the opportunity to be in practice with other people. So sometimes it can be really helpful to be learning something and practicing something in community, because you're not alone, and you get to share the challenges and share the successes and share the learnings, and everybody benefits from that.
Absolutely. And I think we cannot emphasize this enough that it takes time. It takes months and years, because I hear that a lot from people that yes, I did, mindfulness practice for a few days, and then I did meditation for a few days, and I then went to, retreat. It works for a couple of days, then it stopped working. And it's like, just keep going, just keep going, just keep going. And keep coming back to yourself. I think that's really, really important to yeah, with everything. That's
Yeah, yeah. And some days we're going to be super successful, and some moments we're going to be super successful, and some moments we're going to be like really not, like the opposite. And that's okay. It's really okay.
and yeah, and holding space for those days when things are not just working out, you are just in a really bad mood or whatever is you're going through.
Hmm.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Recognize
Yeah.
that today I need to be held.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And we all have those days and we all have those moments. All of us. No one, again, no one's a machine. This, you know, endless going, unfeeling machine. Nobody.
That's beautiful. I think this beautifully sums up everything about holding space, really. So, I would just love to end this with any particular qualities or any particular things you want to share about anything which is we haven't covered till now, because I think we covered a lot about holding space. But if you think,
Yeah.
as last message you would like to cover, Rachel.
Yeah. Well, I just want to name kind of where we are as a collective, in the world right now. I think it's really important to put holding space in context so it doesn't just feel like some woo woo or spiritual or thing that we do like outside of our lives, but why is it so important to do in our lives as we are now? The last year has been such an upheaval for the entire collective, for the worldwide collective. And we were thrown into a liminal space. Everything we had known, everything that was familiar and safe and normal, and what was our routine and our ways of being. I mean, it all just ended very abruptly. And we were thrown into the liminal space. And the liminal space is a space that's between the no longer and the not yet. It is a rite of passage space. And so even as we're starting to come out, we're not quite in the new. We're not quite in the new order. We've just started to come out, right? We're moving towards it. But we're no longer in the old order and we're no longer in the new order. And yet I hear and see a lot of people wanting to go back to that old order. Oh, now that we can, now that in some parts of the world things are opening up, I'm just going to go back to how it was because that was safe and comfortable for me. But the truth is, Saloni, we can never go back. Once we leave that place, we never go back. Once you become a mother, you never go back to who you were before you became a mother. It's the same thing for all of us. And so really the opportunity here, I think, for the entire world is to sense inward, how has this changed me? how has this shifted me? Who am I now that I wasn't before? And to know who we are now requires that we perhaps feel things that are not super comfortable to feel. The fear of the past year, the pain of the last year, the losses of the last year, the financial stresses, the massive confusion, right? The unknown, all of it. To really give ourselves permission to feel that so that we can step into the new order. We can step into this really brand new world in a way that is so much more authentic and present and connected to ourselves and each other. So I really think it is a grand opportunity for us to step back into our work environments, step back into our family lives, step back into our most intimate relationships in very new ways, and in ways that really create intimacy and connection and safety. And, to me, all of that is really for the healing of the planet. It's not just the healing of ourselves, but when we do that, we are really contributing to the healing of the collective. And so
Oh,
I just wanted to mention that, it's like we are very much at a time and place where more than ever before, I think this holding space work is important and valuable.
absolutely. And how beautiful. And actually, I want to say more because I absolutely love what you said about liminal space. Because right now, I think everybody can so clearly see that. But also, it is there throughout our lives. Every time we're going through any transition, I think that's what where we are, and we kind of there's a pull from the old patterns. We just want to go back to that comfort zone. Anytime we're stretching out, to being in a new way for being, just letting go of our old sabotaging behaviors or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Would you like to add something more? Because it's so interesting. I don't want to end it here because everybody can see it in their own way. And when they are in that space, anything would you like to add to how really maybe to really be kind to themselves in that space? And what more they can do there?
Yes. So the liminal space is innately uncomfortable
Mm.
because, again, it's like the old identity, like you said, is like it's dissolving away, it's falling away, it's sloughing off, or it was like in the pandemic, it was cut off, very abruptly. Um, and the new identity, the new kind of beings in the world hasn't quite formed yet.
Mm.
So we're really in this, very unknown territory. And that unknown territory flushes up so many feelings that we typically don't have to feel because we're more solidly in our lives, we're more but this is we're very wobbly in the liminal space. It's a wobbly territory. Sometimes we don't even know what the next step is. Really. I mean, it can be that unknown. And so just bringing it full circle, to connect with others in the same space during this time, to have space held for you. And I would recommend having space held for you by someone who has moved through the liminal space in a more awake, aware, conscious way, where they've really allowed themselves, because you can't rush through it. We try all the time. Let me just get to the other side. Please, God, Goddess, all that is, get me a parachute, get me to the other side as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Anything but this space, it's the unknown. But when we learn to embrace that unknown, when we really learn to surrender to it, to honor it, to sit in it, to expand our capacity to be in it, the gifts are innumerable. And this, because we learn who we are beyond anything outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the gift. That's the treasure. It's like, the cave Joseph Campbell said, the cave we fear to enter holds the treasure that we seek.
Mm.
So we go into the cave, we go into the dark, we go into the mystery with support, not always by ourselves, but again, with that support, with that guide, that mentor, that person holding space for us. And the treasure is us, and so I there's a grand opportunity right now to be with ourselves in ways that we've never been, and to be with others in ways we've never been, so that everybody can find themselves. Everybody can know themselves.
Beautiful. That was just so beautiful to really embrace the unknown, embrace the uncertainty. And I think it's a very vulnerable state. And if we can embrace that, there is so much strength in it. So much strength.
Yeah. Slowly, right? Slowly. Slowly and gently, and with support and with grace. Yeah.
With grace and support. Beautiful. I think that was just beautiful wrap up to our session. I would say thank you so much for this, Rachel. And please tell our listeners where can they find your work. And also, I know you hold this space for holding space training as well. So you mentioned that as well.
Oh, thank you, Saloni. Yeah. So I've been mentioning the course throughout our talk together, and at the Center for Transformational Coaching, which is where I work and lead the Holding Space for Healing training. That's Leon Vanderpool's work and center, and he was on a previous podcast, so you can also listen to him. But find us at centerfortransformationalcoaching.com. It is an 8-week training, the Holding Space for Healing course. And it's for therapists, coaches, parents, nurses, healing practitioners of all kinds. It's really for anyone who desires to learn how to hold healing space for themselves and others during this time, and to accelerate their own healing journey. And so we welcome you into a future course. If you need to reach me, you can actually reach me through that website. And I also have my own website, rachelstarrbruck.com. And please reach out to me with any questions at any time for any reason.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with me, Rachel. And I absolutely loved the conversation. And I'm sure our listeners would have loved it too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saloni. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye. Wow, what a beautiful and heartwarming conversation with Rachel Starr about holding space for yourself and your loved ones. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to me or Rachel. All the links are in the show notes below. And I would highly encourage you to check out her websites and her work. And the links are in the show notes as well. And if you are someone who is going through some kind of challenge or pain or any situation where you want to explore if a life coach can support you and hold space for you to help you navigate through this time, feel free to send me an email to find out more. You can connect with me at coach@salonisingh.com. And I will be seeing you very soon in the next episode of Raising Parents 2.0 with another amazing guest. Till then, keep evolving, keep growing, and keep inspiring yourself, your children, and the whole world. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this podcast, please do share with others who would benefit from this, and also leave a review for me and Rachel. Thank you. Bye bye.